All right. Got my damn glasses. La, la, la. Recording in progress. Mic getting. Good morning. Oh. You can just have to whatever you like.
Why did we disrupt it? I don't know what that's doing.
I mean, your mic is on. No, it's
Commissioner Van Mark, can you hear me?
I can, but you're very echoey.
That's my mic. Okay. Is that better, Commissioner Van Mark?
It is much better, thank you, because, you know, I'm like a princess, sure.
Well, no, we have, a couple too many speakers and microphones going on in one room.
Ah,
Somehow John's packet didn't get tab 7.
We don't have tab 7.
His had a tab 7. But there was nothing behind it.
What I do like that? I have 7 on here. What happened? Well, none of them have tab 7. Oh, yeah, mine, well, I guess it does have, mine says.
Oh, yeah, behind
Behind the
it.
paper.
It's Albany, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why? What? Can you?
Make you, I need to make you,
Oh, I'm already co-host. I need to print this thing, but it's not letting me.
Devin, your animals are changing.
I'm playing around with the avatars that you can use.
Well, it's really cute on you. Look at your eyebrows, move your eyes up and down.
It's kind of cool.
Look at
It's a little trippy. I'm not saying everybody should do it, but it is definitely interesting.
Good morning, Chairman Tarter. Can you hear me? Chairman Tarter, can you see the take a lead? Oh, there's Chairman. Chairman, can you hear me?
I think so.
There you are. Good, great.
You in town anyway?
Yeah.
Where you? Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
Good morning, Jackie.
Shelby, would you like Devin, will you have Devin add me to that or do that to it?
Yeah, as soon as we're finished, I'll
Okay.
make myself a note, get
Yeah,
you
if
added,
I-
because I'd love to have you, so.
That's a point of contention I talked to Jana about yesterday.
Good morning, just checking my microphone.
Oh, good morning.
Not sure how, and she's gonna try and help me work on that. She's out.
I'm just putting that in my way.
Well, I had some other things to take care of this afternoon. And we were-
Oh, well, then, yeah, why go all the way back and just not, well, did you stay in there or stay?
Yeah. I said,
Oh, nice.
well, she tell May, that she'll get done with her undergrad,
Awesome. She had a degree.
communications. And then she'll get her undergrad.
I just let August, she took a couple something, but she just in August.
Okay. What I do, I do. That's just my
Right.
influence control is pretty minimal.
Yep.
I guess because once you get in the real world, you got about 40 years, so you don't want to take another, take your time. Enjoy it, but don't enjoy it too much.
Yeah, that's what she got done. And she's.
No.
Jack? Am I gonna need this?
No, but you asked for it, so I wanted to.
Perfect spot for her, right? You know, it's a little warm.
Good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for coming all the way over.
Oh, we were over.
Oh, were you?
Stuff later this afternoon. I was there for the garbage.
Okay. Good. Cool. Wonder if we're gonna have anybody from the public.
Probably not in person.
Probably beyond. Can you tell how many we have?
We've got 15 participants on right now.
Yeah,
Great.
couple years.
Oh, make
Couple
that
years ago, we
16
were
counting Joni joining right now.
garbage. My wife,
Keith Brown.
Live or we are?
We are, the mic is hot, yes.
Man, garbage. All right.
No, tab 7's Albany.
Tab 6 is Albany, tab 7 is Park.
On May 17th. I get home for the diploma.
Unless it's backwards in mine.
Park Elementary or Park County?
Park.
Is that here?
In the Trone.
Right, it's tab six.
That's tab 6.
Oh, okay. Then it got put under tab 6 in my packet
May 17th.
instead of tab 7. So I missed the park.
First time.
So it's,
Isn't that park right there?
That's park right there.
so it's under tab 5.
Then
You
what do
can
we-
sit here and work off the mic.
We were at it.
If you sit here.
That's good. All I need is the.
John, do you want to trade out? You're doing presentation. You want
I'm
mine?
fine. I'm fine. I got the sheets. They're just out of order.
Okay.
That's so weird. Because we still are.
Yeah, I don't know how we messed that one up.
Half ago.
We're human.
They're testing me now.
Are you checking out how flexible?
What time do you get back?
It was like 10 to 5.
Okay.
Good morning,
Yeah.
Commissioner Cashel. Can you
Not
hear me?
enough time to wash it.
Good morning.
We had a good meeting with snow and rain. Morning, Joni.
Good morning, everyone.
We got the keys. Got the keys to that dummy for gas cut.
No, I need to take it. Get it
I'm
off.
probably gonna get rid of it.
I'll go to meetings.
Okay, I don't see that Bruce is on yet, or Scott's there with you guys, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Thank
Good
Carol.
person.
Tom's on.
Did somebody say?
Hologram.
Good morning.
Conklin's not on. Then we got a couple more minutes.
There's Bruce. Good morning, Bruce Thorin. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Is he on just by phone?
No, he's there on video you see him?
No. Maybe it needs a wide angle. Let me,
Oh, I didn't.
huh,
How did I?
no. I don't. They have me, Devin, Jackie, the meeting room, and Joni. I don't know what the heck the deal is. Oh, well. Share screen. Participants. Huh. Is what it is, I guess.
And there's conflict.
All right, Chairman, it looks like we have everyone here. We can get started when you're ready.
Okay, first item we'll have the roll call.
All right, Commissioner Conklin, nobody's here.
Here, I'm here. I just couldn't get unmuted. Thank you. Here.
No worries. Commissioner Behrens,
Here.
Commissioner Kasheloffer,
Here.
Commissioner Thayer,
Here.
Commissioner Thorne,
Here.
Commissioner Van Mark,
Present.
and Trent Carroll for Superintendent Dagenfelder. Oh, there he is. You've got to admit him.
He must have popped in and out.
All right, just a second. I'll call him just a second. Let me get connected. Oh, there he is. Trent Carroll for Superintendent Dagenfelder. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Good morning. And Chairman Tarter.
Present.
All right, we can move forward, sir.
Okay, I'm going to try to keep this meeting moving fairly fast. I may get called at some point in time and go pick up my wife from the hospital. So I'll let you know if I do, or you might hear the phone ring. But that's the main thing. You know, we got a lot to cover. And we'll discuss at length some of our steps that we take on the Mercers. There's some questions in that, and I'll have the director go through that with us. And then when we get into all of the Mercers, we can discuss it further. So anyway, director remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Del McComey, Director for State Construction Department. First, I'd like to thank all the commissioners that attended the select committee meeting and our safety summit, either in person or online. Certainly, I know that the districts and the select committee appreciate your attendance, and I heard good things from the folks in the audience at both those meetings that, you know, there was from the commission. So I'm glad to see that. Second, as we discussed next year's agenda, I'd like to note that we may be asking, and we'll talk more about it. Shelby will talk more about it along with Shelley. There may be asking you for more of your time for additional meetings, either virtually or in person, to address the approval of Mercers that will be coming forward. I think you're all aware that we've got 20 plus Mercers out there on the street, and they're starting to kind of move forward. And I think it's important that once those are addressed by the various school boards, that commission takes some action on them, so we keep those projects moving forward. And so again, we'll talk a little more detail on that a little bit later, what that may look like. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to kind of update the commission on the Sweetwater High School. They've been having some recent issues on their sewer pipes breaking. And I think Travis could pull up a couple of photos that we got from the district, but they've been working hard to keep that up. You may recall, I think it was in probably last year's approval from the commission, it was noted that there was about, I'm going to say I recall, it was like $8.8 million for the backflow preventer projects. But that was just what I think caught everybody's attention. It was the backflow and then work on all the pipes. I got a lot of questions during the appropriations meeting and select committee meeting on, $8 million to do backflow preventers. Well, it's more than just backflow preventers that money was to be allotted to. So these are recent failures. That's a 6-inch pipe. And so you can see on that one where it's broke open quite a ways, had a lot of flooding. And as I was talking with the facility manager, Dan Celeroli, and about it, and he said it wasn't a good day to be a plumber, because I think that happened on like a Wednesday or a Thursday before they were supposed to have a multi-district swimming meet at the high school. So they were busily trying to get all that fixed. Travis, there's, any of those other photos, there's some other ones. So there was some other repair needed besides that pipe. And then the next one, another section of pipe that's going bad. So again, a lot of piping throughout that building, and just wanted to kind of point that out to the commission so you're aware in case you hear anything. But Dan and his staff have been working hard to get that again repaired. And so I don't know if Dan's online. And if you are, Dan, if you wanted to weigh in and maybe give some updates on that, but again, I just wanted to point that out to the commission, that they're having some fairly substantial issues on their sewer lines, and they have some similar issues where the pipes on their water lines are breaking out too, just rusting out. So.
Yeah, Dale, I'm here. Thank you. Good morning. Actually, the pipes are still leaking because we can't shut that portion of the school down. And the 6-inch cast pipe is on order and won't be here till mid next week. So we just went in there kind of trying to mitigate all of the stuff that's on the, in that crawl space, make it safe for when the plumbers go in there and start replacing everything. But then we'll have to shut that whole wing down for a week. Because it's probably going to be about a week's job just to get everything that we can get to. And just a reminder of everybody, when we did walk, when the commission was out here and we walked those buildings, we talked about this. John Rexis and I have been aware of this since the FEA report last year. And this isn't an area that is, I think, 2 years old or 2 years newer than the original building. So we have this issue. We ran cameras down in our main sewer lines, and it's pretty prevalent throughout the entire structure. So sooner we can move on this, obviously, the better. But in the meantime, we'll continue to do what we can do to provide a safe environment for our kids.
Thank you, Dan. Commissioners, do you have any questions of Dan or myself on that? Okay, hearing none, guess we'll kind of proceed. So, Mr. Chairman, again, just want to thank the commissioners for their attendance at these various meetings. I know it takes a lot of time out of your day besides the regular commission meetings we have, and it's certainly appreciated. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. If you want to move on to the next topic.
Thank you, Director. The next item we have would be the approval of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda.
I need a second.
Second.
Oh, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Since you're ready to approve the agenda, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. So moved. Next item is executive session if necessary. Do we have any reason for executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe so.
Okay, we'll skip over that. Next discussion topics, select committee meeting update.
Again, this Del McComey. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Overall, I thought the meeting went very well. I thought the day preview before the meeting and touring some of the buildings was very helpful, particularly for the select committee. I thought the district did a good job of hosting the meeting. And so I want to thank them if they're online for that. You know, there was a couple of things that were pointed out, such as the vestibules and things like that, some of their cost issues in Teton County, and I think we probably all realize the cost of living up there or cost of building in Teton County compared to elsewhere in the state. But you know, their ideas on how they're going to move forward. Again, I received some pretty good feedback from the select committee that they appreciated, you know, touring not only the high school but the old transportation facility that was up there. And then, you know, kind of looking at where the new transportation facility would be and kind of at what stage of construction we're at. I thought the meeting itself went well, Mr. Chairman. As you recall, the committee basically accepted the commission's budget. You know, there was quite a bit of discussion on it, but for the most part, the votes were unanimous. I think there was only maybe one vote that wasn't. But overall, I thought it went pretty well. I thought we had a good discussion on the charter schools. And so I think that's probably going to be the beginning of that discussion. The committee thought there probably ought to be maybe a task force or some other work with other committees on charter schools to try and get a more holistic approach rather than a Band-Aid fix this piece that might affect another piece down the road, or at least have everybody on the same page. And I've shared that with the governor's office, and I think that's certainly what they like to see done, is a more thorough analysis of charter schools and what needs to be done to try and bring that into you know, I think a singular section or whatever, rather than piecemeal by various committees that's kind of happened in the past. And I think the committee itself, I think, realizes that there is legislation moving forward through the committee that would address how we calculate to clear that up. Not that we were doing any calculations wrong, but it referred to some other statutes that I think was the feedback we got from the charter schools. It was hard to understand how we were arriving at our calculations for the square footage for payment on the leases. And so there is at the next meeting going to be a draft of trying to make that a little more transparent. And we've worked with LSO. They've shipped that over. We looked at it and provided our comments back. So, you know, I think that probably stands a good chance of making it through the select committee at the next meeting. The next meeting of the select committee is going to be October 16th. And so, again, if any of the commissioners are interested in attending that, that'd be great. It's going to be here in Cheyenne. And then, interestingly, we also have our meeting with the governor to talk about the commission's budget on the morning of the 14th. That's a Monday morning of October. And so that'll be just prior to going into the select committee. There is a bill draft also that we looked at for the budget. So at this last select committee meeting, you know, they kind of voted on the various items, and then at the end they asked the select committee or they asked LSO to move forward with the bill based on our budget presentation and their votes in the meeting. And so LSO has done that. Again, we got a quick look at that bill. They asked us for some comments on it. And so that'll be, again, on the 16th, they'll be voting on that bill. It's always good if we can have the bills looking the same. So right now, again, we haven't met with the governor, but the select committee bill pretty well mirrors the commission bill. There were some minor changes to it in a few dollar amounts. And if you recall, when we were in Lovell and the commission voted on the bill, you gave us some editorial abilities in the budget that you approved. And so we made those were passed to the commission or to the committee on our discussion up in Jackson, and that's reflected then in their bill. So So it looks like, depending on what the governor does, we'll probably have near budget bill, the governor's approval would be the same as select, which is always good to have. Makes life easy for us, when we go testify before Joint Appropriations Committee, if those two look pretty much the same. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have on that. I don't know if, you attended the whole meeting. I know Bruce was there for the first day, and we had some other commissioners there. Tom was there for a bit in the morning, and I think online we perhaps had some commissioners there. All of your thoughts maybe on what you thought of the select committee, I think, as a whole.
Well, actually learned a lot during that, and I think we're all pretty much singing the same tune right now. I think dollars and cents may become a concern at some point in time, but no, I thought it was a great meeting, and I think that I think they're more friendly to us than they have been in the past. I think they see the good job, the good work that's being done currently, and I think it's just it was a positive thing, in short.
I would agree with that. And I'd also agree with the aspect that we're going to have to take a look at budgets very seriously in the future. With the makeup of our future legislation, I think that's going to become imperative to following our processes, following our protocols, and making sure that we're funding those projects that need the funding. So.
Yep. Okay, next item, Wyoming K-12 Safety and Security Summit update.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This as a follow-up and a debrief of the Safety and Security Summit. We actually had 77 signed up. I think we had between 65 and 70 in attendance. So a big thank you, and 3 commissioners there, Commissioner Thorne, Commissioner Ferens, and Commissioner Van Mark. So appreciated your attendance, and thank you to those online. We had a large number of districts that were in attendance, so we sure appreciated the participation that we got. People were very engaged. We gathered a lot of good information, I think, in all 3 sessions. Were very positive. I'd like to give a big thank you to Travis and Shelley. They were note keepers for me and helped me put together the slides that we used, as well as they'll be working on the final report with me. So they did a great job of capturing the information. Some of the key takeaways that I have noted, a lot of talk about maybe looking at a cross-functional team assessment of schools for security that would involve like local authorities, the district, law enforcement, fire, local emergency management representative, even mention of having, some of the folks, paramedics and people from the hospital participate, as well as members from State Construction Department, WDE, and Wyoming Office of Homeland Security. So quite a bit of discussion on that concept of really bringing a cross-functional team out to look at those schools with a lot of different perspectives participating. Talk about updating our standards. They were developed in 2014. Discussions where we definitely need to update them, but probably should be doing that on about an every 3-year rotation, because that's when building codes and other codes are updated as well. And with thoughts of that we need to really have those in place when those codes go into force. So we talked quite a bit about security vestibules. A lot of schools have put those vestibules in. Some schools it's very difficult because the admin offices are in the middle of the building in a lot of our older schools. So we do still have some schools out there that are missing vestibules, and even some of them that we've got them installed probably could be safer yet. So a lot of discussion on vestibules. Certainly a lot of concern with this concealed carry law that's being considered at this time. And, some of the comments, well, if it goes into effect almost immediately or that July if there's really time to respond that quick to what some of the needs might be in the school setting to those changes. And of course, none of us know what that's going to look like, but there's certainly a lot of concern out there in the district's part about the concealed carry law and proposed changes. A lot of discussion on really needing a dedicated funding stream that's just for security. The one-time funding that came, the capital funding that came was good to put a lot of these things and install them and get them constructed. But that gets them in the building. There's a lot of other costs that go along with that. Like, you know, security and your IT are just tied together. So once you put some of those systems in, you have licensure fees every year for the technology, you know, software updates, hardware updates as the software changes and improves. And, you know, just like additional needs, they'll put the camera systems in, but after you start working with them, you'll find new places where you need cameras. A lot of discussion on cameras and that, you know, you've got to be careful how you use them with regards to cameras and privacy. And so some of those conflicts that the districts run into trying to implement cameras where they really need them. One other thing that I became aware of is in some cases, the districts have had, it's been easy to get law enforcement tied into those cameras so that they can view them when they need to. In other places, again, it comes back to privacy. They haven't been able to get law enforcement tied into those cameras. And law enforcement really needs to be able to get on those cameras if there's an emergency going on. They need to be able to see, you know, what's going on and where the action is. So that was all very interesting discussion to me. But I think that back to where I started, just a dedicated funding stream, in that when you look at all these upgrades and technology, all those costs, you know, strain other district budgets to keep them in place and keep them working properly. A lot of consideration should be given to the use of proprietary versus non-proprietary systems. If you buy that proprietary system, then you're tied to always having to buy those products in the future. And if they upgrade and update, you have to go along. Just like some of our software packages you use, right, that they update and then you're going to be out of date. So, you know, it should give a lot of consideration to maybe trying to stay with a non-proprietary system, which is a little bit easier to respond to upgrades. There has been quite a few improvements in the integration of systems. There certainly was conflict between lockdown protocols and fire safety protocols, but they've made a lot of steps forward in integrating those systems where you can put the systems in that can allow for both lockdown and emergency fire escape. So those are some systems that, you know, made improvements that we need to be thinking about getting updates into the schools as appropriate. Discussion on a security maintenance plan, similar to what you would do for a routine maintenance plan or major maintenance plan, that they really need to do the same with their security features. You know, when do we need to be updating products? When do we need to update systems? When do we need to update licensure and pay those fees, so that they just really have a plan on how to maintain their security systems and keep them up to date. And then the other big one that comes up frequently is training. You know, they struggle with a lot of turnover, and then just, you know, how do they do routine safety checks and training people to do those, and just really keeping people up to speed on the security systems and training for the testing of them as well as the operation. Those were, we certainly have more than those. Those were a lot of my key takeaways that I thought were important. We will be looking to wrap this up into a final report and some action items on how we decide to move forward with the information that we gathered. So that's what I have. I didn't know if any of the commissioners that were in attendance wanted to speak on their perspective of the conference and what they thought.
I think you did a great job covering it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay,
I was
Well-
just gonna mention appreciation to the districts for, actually coming and participating. I don't know if we had representation from every district, but it seemed like it was a very good turnout. So appreciate them participating when we make these available.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other comments? Okay, well, thank you very much. The next item is under tab 1, education session review of school facility commission rules, chapters 8, 9, and 10.
All right. Commissioners, let me get this here. Okay. All right. So to some degree, this summary sheet is a bit of a retread. This is now the third one of these, but it'll be the last, at least for a while, until we've updated the rules. I'll just try to go over this very briefly before we get into the actual rules chapters. So, like I said, this is the third one of these. This time we'll be going over chapters 8, 9, and 10. Tabitha and I. Chapter 8 deals generally with like the building needs schedules, identifying most cost-effective remedy or immerser, and then formulating budget recommendations. And then chapter 9 is sort of the next step, if you can think of it, kind of in a process sense. Chapter 8 is the identifying an issue, like how do we identify issues, and then how do we come up with what we think the remedy ought to be, and then present that to the legislature. Well, chapter 9 is then the kind of the next steps, assuming the legislature does in fact appropriate funds. And because that's truly the next step. Obviously, we have no control over that, but assuming the legislature appropriates funds, chapter 9 is sort of the how do we go about implementing that? How do we determine what sort of delivery method we're going to use for the construction? Talking about land acquisition, as our contract section, on and off-site infrastructure, changes to budgets, the design standards, guidelines, value engineering. So like I said, sort of the process of actually constructing the building and sort of the behind the scenes stuff that takes. And then chapter 10 kind of goes along with those. It's not so much another process. And Tabitha will cover this chapter, so I won't go too heavily into it now, but it's talking about how do we differentiate what is a enhancement or a district initiated element or project. So when we are doing some sort of construction project, or if a district opts to just use its own funds separate and apart from a state funded project, how do we determine whether or not those are in fact the enhancements? And then finally, if something was an enhancement, how does it become a non-enhancement? So that's what chapter 10 covers. So turning to the actual chapters, page 8-1 of chapter 8, or page 6 of 6 of 72 of the packet. I won't by any means read them word for word. I'll try to make chapter 8 and 9 fairly quick, in part because we've only recently adopted changes, so I think most folks are probably fairly aware of what's in chapter 8. Obviously, the first couple of sections are just sort of the precatory stuff that most of the chapters have, like the authority section. Section 2 is just about the inventory that the department keeps for all the buildings. Section 3 is about doing an assessment, which we did last year, the FCA, that's what that's talking about. Section 4, which covers the rest of 8-1, and about halfway through 8-2 talks about the two different schedules that the statute requires us to have: a capacity schedule and a condition schedule. Talks about the projections that are used. So for capacity, we use it's section 4A2 It's an 8-year schedule, so it's 3 and then 5 years. The statute requires 5 years after construction. We've made the commission has made the judgment call, policy call that construction between appropriation to actually finishing the project takes probably at least 3 years. It's the 3 plus 5, making it an 8-year projection. So that's what we use for capacity. Turning to the next page, 8-2, the top of that page, again, similar section. B2, section 4B2 talks about the 5-year projection. So our new FCA. So this is new stuff that was adopted. The final adoption of the rules was this year, but we were working on it last year. The new FCA allows us to do capacity projections, not capacity, condition projections that we used 5 years. Again, this is just another judgment call from the commission, assuming that once again, it takes about, a couple of years to get a project appropriated, evaluated, and constructed. The balance of section 4 is just talking about how those studies, the most cost-effective remedy studies will be used to prioritize these schedules. So previously they were just ranked by, whoever had the highest score on each schedule, and that was just the way it was. You had a 0.41, it was higher than a 0.4, was higher than a 0.39, etc. Some recognition that different, there may be simply, we changed this with the idea that that there may be times when, yes, that's true. Simply in order numerically may be the highest priority, but there may be instances where, a building may be in poorer condition than another, but it may not be a great priority because maybe, for example, for capacity reasons, maybe there are not many people in that building, or it's a non-educational building. So it should maybe have a lower priority than an educational building. Anyway, so that what this section does in C is allows the commission to utilize the most cost-effective remedy study results to prioritize those lists. Maybe take out some things. There's been historically, that's one of the reasons it's in there, is because historically it's happened from time to time where, we have these mechanical lists and then there'll sort of be like little asterisks by certain items that say, this doesn't really need to happen because this building isn't actually being used, or the district has this non-construction alternative that they are engaging in. And so we had to just provide them these lists, but then we had these little things. So this allows us to kind of take those projects off or deprioritize them, or prioritize them as makes the most sense. Section 5 is about the most cost-effective remedies studies. So the first part, this again is new, section 5A. It talks about when a most cost-effective remedy study is triggered, rather than before where we would say that a building has, high need based on one of these things. And then we just sort of give that to the legislature. Here, instead of doing that, what we now have is a system that each of these situations will trigger a most cost-effective remedy study. So if you have a projected capacity over 100%, triggers the need for a most cost-effective remedy study. Same with an FCI score that exceeds 0.3. Or as we talked about a few sessions ago, commission meetings ago, with Chapter 3, Section 8, if there is a request under a Chapter 3, Section 8, that there's an adequacy issue of some sort or another, and the department makes its report, commission agrees at least in principle that a most cost-effective remedy study should be done, then that's the last one of these on this list that would trigger that. B talks about actually performing those studies, notes that the department can conduct studies itself and may utilize the FCI data if it does so. That the department retains control. This is the top of 8-3, retains control of those studies. May consider multiple buildings when doing a single study. you know, I'm not, that's is being done, for example, in the Laramie one instance where it makes sense. It may make sense in certain circumstances to look at more than one building at a time if there's some sort of a, you know, system or grade-wide configuration that would make that make sense. So then C here about a third of the way down, this section covers the criteria that under either whether it's the department or the district performing the most cost-effective remedy study, that these are the elements that need to look at. So depending on the type of building, I mean, all of these are factors that any most cost-effective remedy study, I mean, they're required to address. But if they don't apply, for example, let's say that we're talking about a non-educational building, there are certain, you know, if you go down to like C Romanet 6, for example, district enrollment projections, unlikely to be particularly applicable to a non-educational building like a warehouse. There may be some non-educational buildings. I'm not trying to cover every possibility, but you know, maybe the average non-educational building that may not be applicable. Or for example, in section 9, Romanet 9, the prescribed statewide educational program, once again, may not be super relevant depending on the sort of non-educational building we're talking about. Indeed, so it really, I mean, the list can look, I mean, there are 12 items, although the last one is just any other appropriate factor. So that one just depends on the circumstances, what we're talking about, if there is anything. It may look a little intimidating. And certainly when it comes to educational buildings, the department has traditionally hired out consultants and has indeed hired out consultants at this time to do these sort of studies. But for particularly type of non-educational buildings, a lot of this data is held in-house. We have, I mean, the adequacy standards, only certain sections of the adequacy standards apply to non-educational buildings. And the FCI scores and FCA, given how detailed it is with the projections and the detailed cost recommendations and the component listing out, you know, of what each building has, make it, I think, considerably more possible for the department to perform, particularly for, say, for like warehouse buildings or something, that a lot of these could probably be done in-house. Going from there, section D. So up until this point is sort of the, you know, how do we go about, well, like when do we need a Mercer? How do we go about doing the Mercer? What is required in the Mercer? Section D is what happens after it's been performed. So after whoever has done the most cost-effective remedy study, whether it's performed in-house by the department or performed by a consultant, the department would take that report that's prepared, whether it's in a single-page document, if we're talking about a self-performed Mercer for perhaps a non-educational building, or a multi-page, you know, report for a more substantial issue, and then the department will prepare a recommendation that would identify, you know, from this report, especially if it's a consultant, it'd be fairly easy, you know, maybe just taking what the consultant has said, and would send that report, make a recommendation for the commission, identifying what is the most cost-effective remedy according to the department, what the rationale, why that remedy is the one that's being chosen as recommended as being most cost-effective, and noting what the alternative remedies are. So, I mean, part of the issue with a consultant would be to ensure that their reports, obviously, if the department's performing it in-house, it can make sure that it's following its rules. But if a consultant is performing it, it's to make sure in the contract that the consultant is preparing a report that is sufficiently detailed that the department can do this. And then once that recommendation is complete, the next step is that the department provides that to the district, gives the district an opportunity to weigh in and say, hey, this is an E. Is there any issues with this? Do you agree, disagree? Are there other, you know, options that should have been considered? Do you have a different remedy that you believe is most cost effective? If the district concurs and says, yes, we agree, or if, alternatively, if the department sends it and the, district doesn't respond, that could probably be read as a concurrence. Then the recommendation is simply forwarded to the commission at, the next commission meeting. If, however, the district disagrees, then there is an informal review process. So this is a little different than, it's not a contested case process. I think we've explained previously why we were not recommending and why we didn't go with a contested case process for these. But the reason there simply being that the decision maker is the commission in both instances, and it just makes things confusing. But this provides an opportunity for a district, if it feels that if it has a disagreement, that it can go, with the department. It can come back and explain why it disagrees to the department. It can, we disagree for XYZ reason. If that convinces the department will update its recommendation, make a new recommendation according to what it is now agreed on with the district, whether that was the district's recommendation or they've worked together and come to a new recommendation, or even that the district has now agreed with the department's recommendation, whatever the outcome is there. If they end up agreeing, then that would simply be, then that's the end of any sort of, not really a dispute exactly, but any sort of disagreement. And that would be, once again, presented to the commission. If they can continue to disagree, if the department, this is in E, Romanet 2, big B, so it says if the department does not recommend the district's preferred remedy, department shall include the district's desired alternative along with the director's written decision from the informal review. So it would simply present both alternatives, and any other alternatives indeed that are within the most cost-effective remedy study, but would specifically highlight those two recommendations to both the district's and the department's recommendation. Then turning to section F. So this is taking the next step. What happens when this is forwarded to the commission? The commission is to then issue its own written determination of what the most cost-effective remedy is. It does not have to adopt either the departments or the districts, assuming there was a disagreement, or even if there wasn't, it doesn't have to adopt the department's recommendation as most cost-effective. Can adopt a different recommendation. That determination is a final agency action, which if the district, for example, let's say, disagreed throughout the process, disagreed with the department, or even agreed with the department, but ultimately the commission adopts an option that the district disagrees with. At that point, if a district was aggrieved, the district could then, under the Wyoming Administrative Procedures Act, file a lawsuit and treat it as final agency action and take further steps to try to get that changed. So that's G, then H here at the end. After it's completed, the department shall update the report recommendations as necessary. So if in the future, if circumstances change, keep the commission updated. This section, this was always sort of there inherently, but this section has kind of been beefed up and kind of made more robust with the idea that, circumstances change, especially, again, we can't control what the legislature appropriates. So if a recommendation at one point was to, say, remodel a building, but the legislature didn't appropriate the funds and the building has continued to deteriorate, or a different alternative has opened up in the interim, it may no longer be most cost effective, whatever option was recommended before. So this just as the idea that those can continue to be updated as necessary. The rest of this chapter just talks about the budget recommendations. Anyone has particular questions, I can try to answer them, but most generally what we're talking about, it's just saying here is that we're taking those, once we've kind of gone through this process, step one, identifying whether capacity, condition, or adequacy issue. Step two, we've performed a Mercer. Yes, there are a number of steps within the Mercer process, but we'll just boil that down together as the second step. The third step, taking those most cost-effective remedy recommendations, if they are indeed like capital recommendations. If the recommendation is, use major maintenance funds or is a non-construction alternative, then there may not be a budget recommendation for it. But assuming that the recommendation drives, capital dollars, then we would then take those results of those most cost-effective remedy studies and develop a budget. And then, as the statute requires, it has to be done by September 1. So that's chapter 8. If there are any questions about chapter 8, I would take them now, or you can take them after. Otherwise, I will go to chapter 9. All right. Seeing none, we'll turn to chapter 9. So for those following along online, it's up, but for those reading the book, it's 9-1 of the chapter, or page 13 of the packet. So like I said before, this chapter deals with sort of like what happens after, for the most part. It's like what we're talking about. The legislature has indeed, we've made our recommendation, or even sometimes some of the legislature just appropriates money without a specific budget recommendation, but we have gotten budget dollars to do something. So what do we do next? So first section, again, just precatory, it's just the authority, but then we're getting into section 2. This is agreements that establish the relationship between the SCD and school districts. So I have master MOUs that kind of more general documents about how certain processes happen between the districts and the department, and then project agreements on a more specific basis. So we've got money for something. We have a project agreement that we're signing, explaining, what, especially these, we do them now with all projects that have state dollars, but they're especially important in instances where, as Tabitha will get to in chapter 10, where there is a district initiated element or district initiated portion, because these can delineate, what the department is paying for, what the district is paying for, how the reimbursement process works, and so forth. And then this section also requires that no work or disbursement of funds proceeds until project agreement is executed, and that districts shall not expend appropriated funds until authorized by the director. Section 3 just deals briefly with program planning, how budget requests are developed, and how, if there's an amendment needed for a budget, it happens. Section 4 talks about prototypical design. This is the bottom of a 9-1 or page 13. Briefly, that districts can use prototype designs. Section 5, how we determine what sort of delivery method is going to be used for a given project, whether that's a design bid build or alternative delivery method, as makes sense under the circumstances. Section 6 deals with how site analysis and land acquisition is performed. In particular, on 9-3, about a third of the way down, section C, if land acquisition is necessary, that talks about the due diligence that the department shall perform before making a purchase, such as taking the title commitment, site survey, environmental assessments, zoning issues, things of that nature. Also allows a waiver if it makes sense for one of those provisions. If, for example, we're not able to obtain it, and it's unnecessary, or under the circumstances makes sense to not obtain a particular thing, that the commission can waive one of those provisions. Provides for the confidentiality of the land acquisition process. Then turning to page 9-4, talks about the services. It's the services and contracts. Really just contracts, honestly, but there's a little bit of the other stuff. So the bulk of this section, section 7A, talks about the commission contracts. So we've discussed this in some detail, and we'll have the commission contracts in the future date for approval, the updated commission contracts. But what this section is talking about is the requirement that, one, that districts use those commission contracts for state-funded capital projects, unless the commission and the AG's office approves. that modifications are allowed on a project-to-project basis. And again, get approval of the Attorney General's office for the minor modifications, and if there's more major modifications, that the department, AG's office, and commission approve those things. And finally, there in A Romanet 4 that a contract that's modified, executed without approvals is not eligible for state funding. So this occasionally arises where, a district wants to move forward with a project for some particular reason, I'm not saying they're invalid reasons. I think what I've seen before is that, a particular contractor, is good price, but it's only available, at a particular time, and the process of, not so much the department's process of doing the contracts, or even the commission is particularly slow, but between the times of when the commission meetings are, for example, there occasionally isn't time in order to get those things approved when they want them to do for in a timely manner. I've seen occasions like that, so that folks may begin work prior to getting a commission approved contract fully executed. This is just saying if that happens, that anything that happens before that under a non-commission approved contract, whether that's approved, whether that's actually a commission approved contract or that's just a separate contract that somebody wants to get commission approval for, if you start using it without the approval, you're not eligible for state funding. Section 8 discusses value engineering, as the percent of the at what stages value engineering is necessary and occurs. Section 9 talks about the closeout of a project. This is page 9-5. Section 10 goes through some. It's about a page long. It's the rest of page 9-5, the beginning of page 9-6, or page 17 of the packet. The on and off-site infrastructure that the department will pay for using state funds if necessary. Obviously depends on where a facility is being built. If this infrastructure is already present, streets, so forth, are already present, then obviously it's less necessary. But in an area where those things are not necessary, covers what part of those costs the department will cover. Section 11, page 9-6, the changes to budgeted financing, how those occur once the budget, we've gotten to the point of we have an appropriation, we're working with the project. For example, B, in the event, B reads 11B, that in the event a particular project budget appears to be insufficient, project will be allowed to proceed with legislative funding, and under these following circumstances, the value engineering recommendations have been followed. We try to identify cost savings, scheduling, phasing of the project, determine if budgeted funds will be required, cost savings may be obtained. And then C, if those factors are insufficient to achieve project costs within the budget, commission consider the following additional factors. As a means of bringing it within budget, may change the delivery method, may consider other sources of funding, such as contingency funding that the commission holds, may delay the project, or may go back for a complete or partial replanning or redesign of the project in order to bring it within budget. Section 12, facility design standards and guidelines. So this section, so I believe it was Shelby that was discussing, the secretary, Shelby Carlson was discussing earlier about the design standards and guidelines. So this section does not adopt them as rules. Our design standards and guidelines are not incorporated in the rules. They are not rules. There's some arguably confusing language in those guidelines about how they are applied, but they are not part of the rules. But what this section does is define how those are to be used. So specifically delineates that they do not apply to existing school buildings and facilities and are not used for evaluating the adequacy of existing school buildings or facilities. The idea there is that the purpose of the design standards and guidelines is to set forth how buildings should be built, the recognition that those should probably, as Secretary Carlson noted, that they'd be updated continually, which is one reason for them not to be in the rules. It makes it easier to update. But that existing buildings are just by their nature, if, new features, let's say, we have this whole AI boom right now. I can't imagine what sort of feature that would be incorporated into school because of it, but let's say that this drives some new feature that becomes standard in school buildings. Obviously, existing school buildings do not have whatever feature, it didn't exist at the time that they were built. This is just saying that they're not inadequate because it's missing. That's not what the design standards and guidelines are for. There is a process, to some degree, I think that's addressed in chapter 10. So again, I won't really address it here, but there is a process by which if there are new elements and things that are identified as, might have been enhancement, let's say we're incorporating some new feature in, becomes like a standard, that could be adopted into the adequacy standards, could become part of standards. And in that instance, we could then say if buildings were lacking those features, then that might be inadequate. Like for example, it didn't happen, but if it had, now internet connectivity is a fairly, I think most people would agree that a school building that doesn't have internet connectivity in this day and age would be, whether it's wholly inadequate or not, I think would be debatable. I would argue no, but regardless, if you didn't have that internet connectivity in a school building, I think there'd be a pretty good case to say that at least as to technology, you are inadequate. At one point, it probably, like I said, this current apparatus didn't exist at the time when the internet was rolling out. But if it had, I think when it first was rolling out, you could have said, well, putting a modem, router, or whatever might be an enhancement. But at some point, we got to where everybody was using it. It was standard. It became sort of a required and a necessary thing. This rule and the other things in the rules allow for that process to occur naturally as things become standard that they can be incorporated in. Section C here requires the commission to adopt certain kinds of facility design standards and guidelines, such as for educational buildings, school bus maintenance facilities, for outdoor physical education facilities. Section F here addresses project agreements again. Checked it is not inconsistent with the other section, although it is somewhat redundant. That would be something I might suggest that we address, not a huge issue, but in future rulemaking, is to combine and eliminate either the first section that I addressed before about project agreements or this one, because they are somewhat redundant with each other. And then finally, section H on 9-8 just directs the commission to incorporate reasonable community and district input and participation for conforming aesthetic design within the community when a new school building or facility is designed. Shall defer to reasonable aesthetic design choices, provided they do not bring the building facility to a condition exceeding the commission's relevant adequacy standards. So, I mean, this would be a community by community basis, but it's in a different state, but I don't know if anyone else there has ever visited Santa Fe, New Mexico, but there, I think, at least I believe, judging by the way that the town looks, I think it's a requirement. But whether it's a requirement or not, it's at least very standard that like all the buildings have that sort of adobe kind of stucco look. If there was some sort of similar requirement in a town, let's say that they required, buildings to have a certain color facade or look a certain way, this would allow this provision would require the commission to consider that at least. And if that did not, wasn't like, required that the town requires the gold plating on the outside of the building, I think we probably would agree that that's probably in excess of the adequacy standards. But if it was something reasonable, and I think if there was one, it would be reasonable, then this would just require us to take that into consideration when the building is designed. I think we probably would anyway, but this was because of how the design process works, and but this just makes that a little more explicit. So I know I've obviously skipped over some sections, but I tried to cover what I think are kind of the highlights here. If there's any questions about chapters 8 or 9, I can try to address them. Like I said, I can address them now, or we can turn over to chapter 10 and for Tabitha. All right.
So I will go over district initiated elements, district initiated projects, and local enhancements. So chapter 10 addresses both what those are and how those are addressed by the department and the commission. So the big thing to consider is that the state capital construction funds are not allowed to be used for district initiated elements or projects. And one of the things that that can come up with these is LEED certification, so making it more environmentally friendly. Those are considered district initiated elements, and so those are not included in the state budget allowances. So the district initiated elements and projects are things that exceed the adequacy standards. So that includes additional square footage. So if it exceeds the square footage, then the district will be responsible for those portions. Or if there are design elements that are not included in the adequacy standards, then those would be included in the district initiated elements. And then additionally, with the not spending funds on those elements, we also are not permitted to reimburse the district for those costs. So you can't pay up front and you can't reimburse later. So the department is responsible for maintaining a record identifying all of the local enhancements. And we'll get into a little bit of how the district identifies or how the department identifies those. So the districts are responsible for notifying this, moving down to section 3. The district is responsible for notifying the department prior to the design of any district initiated elements that will be included in those designs. And regardless of whether the district identifies those elements or notifies the department ahead of time, the district is ultimately responsible for those elements. So if it goes through the process of review and approval by the department and those elements have not been identified, that doesn't make the state responsible for paying for those elements. They are still district initiated elements, and the district will be responsible for payment. So the department is responsible for evaluating the district initiated elements and how the payment or how the allocation of costs will be for district initiated elements, and then the legislatively funded portion of the project. So the district is responsible for the cost of all of the district initiated elements, including the design and other consultation costs, construction costs. And again, re-emphasizing that state funding can't be used for those. So how those costs are allocated, the district shall bear the cost of all of the district initiated elements, and those shall be bid separately as an alternate. And then if there's additional square footage which exceeds the adequacy standards, the difference between the allowable square footage and the project total square footage will be computed as a percentage, and then those costs will be allocated based on that percentage. So the extra square footage percentage will be allocated to the district, and then the state can pay for the adequacy standard square footage. At the conclusion of a project, the district shall evaluate the district initiated elements in light of the adequacy standards under Chapter 3 that you've reviewed earlier, the department shall identify any district-initiated elements. So the district is upfront responsible for notifying the department that there are these elements. The department then reviews them and makes sure all of the district-initiated elements have been identified. And then the department will exclude the identified local enhancements from its calculation of district square footage for the purposes of calculating major maintenance payments. The district is permitted to petition the commission under Section 4 that we'll get to in just a minute for inclusion of those elements in major maintenance funding. The department is responsible for maintaining records of all of the local enhancements, and that helps keep track of what elements can be included in major maintenance calculations and what elements can't. And every 4 years, the department is responsible for determining whether those local enhancements are still local enhancements or if the adequacy standards should be reevaluating. So like what Devin was talking about, where having internet provided in a school may not have been a part of the adequacy standards 30 years ago, that would be something that should have been incorporated into the adequacy standards at some point. So those 4-year reviews are when the department looks at the enhancement categories and determines whether they have a positive demonstrable effect on the delivery of education. So that's the standard for when it should be converted from a local enhancement to incorporation in the adequacy standards. If the department's research indicates that an enhancement does have or may have a positive demonstrable effect on the delivery of education, then the department gathers evidence of that and presents it to the commission along with a recommendation from the department as to what should be done. Then it is the commission's responsibility for determining whether the local enhancement or categories of local enhancement do have a positive demonstrable statewide effect upon the delivery of educational programs. And if the commission determines that there is a positive demonstrable effect, it will make a determination whether and how those local enhancements should be categorically incorporated into the statewide adequacy standards. Then moving on to Section 4, which is for the district's petition to acknowledge those local enhancements. So the local enhancements remain a local enhancement until the commission acknowledges that the facility fits within the adequacy standards. So situations where those local enhancements can be incorporated into the facility is if the design element has been incorporated into the adequacy standards, if the district and the department and then through the commission have determined that the local enhancement has a positive demonstrable effect, or if the enhanced square footage in the event that a facility is oversized, if the enhanced square footage no longer exceeds the adequacy standards. So the school district has grown sufficiently to require that enhanced square footage that can then be incorporated into the district's square footage, and major maintenance payments can be made for those. If the commission approves the list presented by the department, then the department shall remove the enhancement designation from all of the elements, square footage, or buildings but it continues to maintain those records for the legislature. Any district that believes that a local enhancement has a positive demonstrable statewide effect upon the delivery of the state educational program may petition the commission for a review and provide the evidence to the commission of the positive effect. And that should be presented in the form of statistical analysis that establishes a causative effect. And then the commission is responsible for determining whether the enhancement does in fact have a positive demonstrable effect. And if the commission makes that determination, it will then determine whether the local enhancement should be incorporated into the adequacy standards. And once again, just to reiterate, the state, the department, and the commission shall not reimburse the district for the costs of any of those elements. So you can start major maintenance payments at that point, but you're not going to go back and reimburse the district for those local enhancements. Any questions on chapter 10?
Are there any questions on any of the discussion today?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dale. Not a question, but I think you'll get some real life experience in what was described today by Devin and Tabitha later on in action items. So.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
this
Chairman.
may not totally impact the rules, but more of process procedure. After going through these rules, reflecting back on some decisions that the commission has made regarding projects that came in over budget, one of the things that I would really like to see in our process to be better informed in the decision making, kind of tied to chapter 9, section 11, section B, Romanet I, as far as the, let me find that page now. Value engineering and things that have been taken into account for value engineering. I would like to see some of that historical on some of these projects that are coming in over budget, if we could please, in the future.
Any other questions? Dell, do you want to respond to that, or Shelby?
I think at least the one that I'm familiar with that we brought before the commission most recently, we did share that value engineering history, and what had been adopted and what had not. We John Rexis and I have been talking about what those lists look like when they come back from our value engineering consultant, and maybe segregating them a little bit better. So this is an adequacy standard. This is a recommendation, so that it's a little clearer on the status of each of those comments. Because we're not always just checking adequacy, but we're looking at other things to balance costs and construction value. So.
Sure, and I don't always agree with some of the value engineering comments and perspectives as well, but I would like that opportunity to make my own mind up about looking at those and projects that are over budget.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wrote this note down before we kind of got into this, just because of a earlier discussion. But as Shelby pointed out, John and her and myself have been talking about the value engineering process and not just, I think that's kind of an overarching term that's used, but it's really plan review. And a portion of plan review is value engineering. I think it's sometimes looked at that plan review is at all the stages is value engineering. And so I thought one of the next education, my note says one of the future education sessions is to talk about the plan review process, including value engineering, and have that discussion. Because I think there is confusion over what is what, as Shelby mentioned. There are certainly components of value engineering, but there's also our consultant provides just, I think, generalized engineering reviews of things too, and those aren't necessarily the same.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
Whoops.
just
Yes.
a quick one on chapter 10, what Tabitha took us through. I guess it helped me on the district-led enhancements, projects and things like that. When they come back and say this is more the standard, if there's other comps and other instances that show that to be, versus I would guess, just speaking here, that there's probably a pretty good push to get that. If they have a local initiative or an enhancement they want, they pay for it later on to come through the back door to get the state to pay for the major maintenance or the upkeep, other things like that. I could see theoretically some instances of that if there's comps or other instances where that happens, where that is allowed or disallowed, to kind of have them put the onus on the districts to be able to support that versus having the department defend. And I don't know if it's a big issue or not.
Okay. Any other comments? Thank you. Now we'll move on to tab 2, Mercer Studies Update, Administrator Carlson.
Mr. Chairman, I would say the most cost-effective remedy studies are certainly in full swing, and we're pretty busy with these right now. So I thought I'd just kind of walk through a lot of these and talk about where they're at. Those that I mentioned that say analysis, it means the walkthrough's been done and the consultant is reviewing and evaluating all of the data and working on pulling together the information to draft a report and determine what the alternates are and how those are going to measure up. So that
I have one thing. If you would you go through the whole process, just give us a brief description of how they're selected, the outside contractor, which is works for us now, not for the district, but how they go through, and when, if the district has some involvement in it through their administration, where that would come in at, so there's no misunderstandings. I think we've had a couple people concerned in the process, and if we can just go through that, but I think one thing we always want to remember that this is a process the legislature dictated to us, and it's these Mercers belong to the School Facilities Commission. So we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely. So I'll go back to the very beginning, right? Actually 3 tools that we look at to determine when a most cost-effective remedy is required would be based on condition. So we've got a facility condition index greater than 0.3. We have a projected capacity that's out 8 years that's greater than 100%. And the other one is a rules chapter 3-8 of adequacy. And that's where the district comes in and asks us to consider whether the building is adequate to deliver the educational requirements. So that is the beginning step of when we decide that we must initiate a most cost-effective remedy. We have hired consultants to do these. We get them on contract. Then the process, now we have evolved this a little bit since we started and moved to doing a kickoff meeting as task order number 1, and that may be just the kickoff meeting if the consultant is familiar with the building. It may include the kickoff meeting as well as the facility walkthrough and meeting with the district. We may do both of those under task order 1. That has helped us be able to refine the scope of work better, set a better cost estimate to exactly what the study is going to require. And then we move into task order number 2, which is going to be gathering all of the data, taking all of the information, and pulling together the study itself. Now, I would say when we look at the complexity of the study, you will see some variations in the amount of collaboration that's going on through this portion. We're going to talk quite a bit about Laramie 1 today and their most cost-effective remedy, where we are looking at all of the elementary schools across the district and trying to incorporate their configuration changes that they have made from going to a K4 to a 5-6. We had 6 schools that actually flagged, 3 for condition, 3 for capacity. We looked at it on a district-wide basis instead of just going in and determining the most cost-effective solution for an individual school. We're looking at it across the district. So we've had a number of meetings to work through that with Laramie 1. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get there. On the ones that we're just looking at a single building, we're going in, we meet with the district. They're then creating that draft report. It's coming in that we are looking at that, putting our eyes on it, seeing where they're at, meet back with that consultant, have them make any changes that we want to see or add additional information we feel is missing, and come out with that draft final. At that point, we're going to meet with the district. We will talk through that with the district and determine where they feel the content's at, if they agree with it, if they disagree, why they disagree. Was there something that we missed in that review? Then we'll go back and refine that to a final report. And then from there, it would move back to the district, to the Board of Trustees for approval or disapproval, as the Board of Trustees decides. And if they agree at that point, then it would move forward to the commission. If they disagree, we'll move into that disagreement process where they have 30 days to indicate why they disagree and why they think the study should be changed. It would go to the director, and the director would review their comments and make a decision on his part as to the most cost-effective remedy, which would then move forward to the commission. I think one other thing I'd like to push in on is we have them look at a number of alternatives, a number of options, a number of remedies that could take care of that problem. In the end, there's just one most cost-effective remedy to solve those problems, right? You don't kind of get a pick list where you can pick parts and pieces or pick this option or not. If it is the most cost-effective, that's it. No remedy is even going to be pushed forward if it won't deliver the educational requirement. And then it moves into the cost analysis.
Thank you. That was an excellent explanation. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. So as we move down through here, Albany 1, Carbon 1, those are both in evaluation. We have been out on site. We've been talking with the district, gathering additional information, and the consultants are actively working on those 2. The next district I'd like to talk about is Laramie 1. You'll see those 6 schools there. Arp Elementary was capacity, Buffalo Ridge condition. I'm gonna skip over East High right now. Hobbs Elementary was condition, Jessup condition, Saddle Ridge capacity, and Sunrise Elementary School capacity. This Mercer actually kicked off before any of the rest of them. We've been very actively working on this since prior to when I started with the department in March. We are finalizing that report as we speak. We have had learning sessions with portions of their board, and we will have a final report out by next Monday. And then we will go before the Board of Trustees to present the Mercer to them on October 7th. And if we are successful and they vote in favor, that Mercer will come before the commission on November 6th and 7th. We would like to move that and have you think about having that be an in-person meeting. I think this is much too complex of a Mercer to try to do virtually. There's just a lot of moving parts and pieces, and the solution spreads over a number of years, which allows the state construction department to make individual funding requests, not a whole lot of money all at once. So that on your radar. If for whatever reason the board does not approve, then we potentially can keep that meeting as virtual.
Hello. Hello.
All right. I guess, are there any questions about Laramie 1 before I move on? That one is the closest to wrapping up. Moorcroft High School, Sundance Bus Barn, those in analysis phase. I listed Rock Springs High School. Site tour was done on August 29th. It's also at this point now in the analysis phase, and they're moving along fairly well on that. We look at Conestoga Elementary, Lincoln 2 Bus Garage, Etna Elementary, and the Sheridan Junior High early building. We have gotten the first blush on those reports. We are reviewing them internally at this time. Hope to meet with the staff yet this week, or it'll be in 2 weeks, if not this week, and go through those, ask for a few changes from our consultant, and those will then be presented to the district for comment before that report is finalized. And we will set up meetings with the district and the consultant to do that. Lusk Elementary, Wheatland Bus Garage, Campbell County High School, Jackson Hole High School, Southeast Elementary, Middle and High School, Pine Bluffs, and Lance Creek, along with Niobrara, are all in the analysis phase. So all of those have been toured, and they are busily working on a draft for those. Rendezvous Elementary, also in analysis. That site tour was done on August 29th as well. Wheatland Junior High School, we are in the process of working with Stasis to get that project moving. Have not done the kickoff meeting or the site visit yet. And Mountain View Elementary School was one that was flagged for a Mercer. The district has since requested disposal of that facility, and it was approved by the commission in March of 2024. So that's where we are on those. Things are moving pretty fast right now, a lot of moving parts. And we do have 5 that would come on based on this year's review of condition, and 1 for capacity. Actually would be 2 depending on how we rule today. The commission rules on Natrona 1's Park Elementary School will come in for a Mercer. Also on capacity, potentially if item 6, depending on how item 6 goes in today's meeting. So those are the future ones, kind of holding on those a bit till we get a few of these others off of our plate. And with that, I ask for any questions.
Laramie 1 East High.
Oh, Laramie 1 East High. That one also is in the analysis phase. Sorry, I skipped over that. But they are reviewing that. I'm anticipating we will hear something from our consultant on that fairly soon for a draft of where they believe that remedy should go.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Any questions from the commission? Thank you very much for a nice report.
You bet.
Next item is tab 3, previous business meeting minutes. I entertain a motion.
I'd so move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Any additions or corrections to those minutes? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
I,
Are there any opposed? So moved. The next item, funding transfer transaction, financial reports from Laura.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
We'll kick off on tab number 4, which is page 36 of your packet. And we'll start off as we usually do with the unanticipated balances. For 17-18, it is $1,197,458. The 21-22 account sits at $1 million. And the 23-24 account, you'll notice on your sheet, reflects the action that the commission took on July 2nd, using funds towards Little Powder's K through 8 school, bringing that balance down to $2,359,837. And then the 25-26 unanticipated account sits at $10,436,886. The land opportunity fund sits at $750,000. The emergency fund is just a hair over $4 million. And the planning fund sits at $3,500,345. And then I have the inflationary fund at the bottom of that page that you can see the original appropriation, what the budgeted projects were, the encumbered, the expensed, leaving you an uncommitted balance of $13,396,014. Are there any questions from the committee on the funding transaction balances? Hearing none, I'll move along. We'll move along to page 39. This, of course, is your appropriations executive summary combining the operations, major maintenance, and capital construction accounts. You will see something just a slightly odd on the 23-24 under column B. You'll see the reversion transactions. You'll actually see a positive number there, which is a little bit odd for you. That is reflective of the market adjustments that were made by the legislature that were done by B11 and brought into the agency to adjust market pay for the staff. And that's why you see a positive number on that one. Moving along to page 40, this is where we section out the operations appropriation summary. Just draw your attention to column D. There are expenditures for our current period, which falls right in line with where they're usually at this time of year. So there's no concerns there. Moving along to page 41, that's your major maintenance appropriation summary report. You'll notice that on the 25-26, we are still working to resolve the 680 report, which is the major maintenance report for 2 school districts. We're getting really close on those, and we hope to have those completed soon. As soon as we do, we'll make sure that we update the commission. Moving along then to page 42, this is the capital construction appropriation summary. And again, we just like to look at those and make sure that we're always seeing those account balances moving out the door and getting out to projects, which they are. Then we'll move along to page 43. This is your capital construction transaction summary report. And here I draw your attention to column B, where you see that positive and that negative number. Again, the negative number is just taking money out of what was budgeted and moving it up to what was awarded. In this case, it's about $9.7 million, and about 85% of that was for the Little Powder school. So that's where the majority of those funds went. Moving along, pages 44 through 47 are just the details of the unanticipated transactions account that we went through at the beginning of the report. In case you wanted to look into the details there. And then moving along to page 46 through page 50, those are just the details of the transactions where we moved the awarded up from budgeted to awarded. That brings us to page 51. So 51 through 64, which is the remainder of your tab, is just a listing of the appropriations by district and facility that we include every month, both for the commission and the LSO for their review. Are there any questions that I can answer for the commission on any of your financials?
Any questions? Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve the financial reports.
So moved.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Since you're ready to vote, All those in favor of approving the financial reports, please say aye.
Aye.
If any opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you. Next item is item 5, tab 5, draft regular meeting schedule. I think we already have one that we want to discuss, so.
Chairman Tarter, we present this meeting schedule to you about this time every year. The schedule is similar to previous years in regards to months and dates, give or take maybe a week or two. So you'll see in the box on the sheet there, we have February, March, May, June, July, September, and November. You may note the last arrow at the bottom, we may have additional meetings that will be required to review and consider completed Mercer studies. Please note on the commissioners' packets, the motion indicates approval for the 2024, and it actually is supposed to be 2025 meeting schedule. I apologize for that error. For November's meeting, as Shelby had mentioned, that we may be in person depending on the Larry One's board and the review of the Mercer. So details will come as soon as we know the information. I don't have any further other than the locations. We have tentatively planned some visits to some districts, Plat 1 and 2 in May, Sublet 9 in June, and July, possibly Washakie 1 or 2. And then when we get closer to those meeting dates, I will contact the districts and arrange those locations.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments if I could also.
Yes, sir.
So my intent for the February meeting for the legislature is right at this point in time, I'm expecting that to be a shorter meeting unless we have a bunch of Mercers to work on during it. But I just wanted to provide the commission an update on where we're sitting with the budget. In December, we'll be presenting the budget again, along with select committee chairman doing the budget update for joint appropriations committee. And then, of course, it'll move into the legislative session in January. This is a long session for the legislature. And as those bills are introduced and if they move into committees, then we typically testify again on those. So I'll have a pretty good feeling for kind of how that reaction is going based on the votes of the various committees. So I would be updating the commission kind of where we're sitting on the budget and perhaps some of the bills such as the charter school bill, things like that. It would be an update also on what the makeup of the select committee is. So my understanding with the changes in the most recent election, of course, we have some more voting to take place, but that the legislative caucus will occur. They'll select who's going to chair what committees, what the makeup of that committee is. And I do expect some changes on the select committee status, as well as probably joint appropriations. And so, give the commission a little bit of an update on what that looks like and who they'll be, the commission will also be dealing with, say, in select committee meetings and things like that in the future. And then, again, depending on what happens with the Mercer studies, it could be longer or shorter, but at this point in time, I think scheduling of that, we could work with the commission for a mid-morning or mid-afternoon type of meeting. And the reason I say that is the department has to be ready to be down at the legislature during February. That'll be right when things are going hot and heavy. And we can get called in from beginning, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning up until 10. Then they go back into session. They'll break some noonish time frame, and we'll be down there till maybe 2 o'clock, and then be back down there at 4:35, maybe 6, 7, who knows, whenever the legislature adjourns for the day. So there are, 3 times during the day that we, the staff, may have to be down there. So Again, my intent is to try and keep this fairly short if at all possible, and work around the legislative committee's schedule, because we don't know their schedule until the day before, usually that night before, whether we have to show up that next morning and be ready to testify on a bill or whatever it may be. So we'll see how that goes. But again, I would expect that time frame to be mid-morning, mid-afternoon when we schedule that meeting. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Okay, just one question again. What were the dates we were talking about? November wanting to have an actual meeting? And it doesn't affect the schedule we're talking about now, but for some reason I didn't write it down.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the dates would be November 6th and 7th, and those were the actual dates. What I would envision is that we would do the work session on the 6th, and that's actually when the whole Mercer would be presented, all the alternatives have been considered, and what that preferred alternative remedy is. And then you would vote on it the next day. We want to do that here in Cheyenne. We definitely want the district there with us, and then it will accommodate their board of trustees as well as any parents or advisory committee people that would want to be present and follow what the commission is doing or comment. So we would want to do that here in Cheyenne.
Okay.
Then I wonder if the commission would like to consider maybe we just put a meeting date on each month. Just at least then you would have that kind of blocked out, because I think as these Mercers start to roll, we're certainly want to go move them along and get them before the commission. You know, if they're simpler, I think they can be done virtually. Some of the remedies on these facilities can be a pretty simple remedy. The more complex ones, I think we would need to, or be advisable to do them in person. So I just asked the commission what your thoughts are on that, so that you got something on your schedule where we know when we're going to do that. If
You know,
I'm ready to go.
what I would suggest we do is send out a tentative, some dates, Shelby, and have everybody, put some we can pick out and have everybody tell the dates that they can or can't make it.
Okay.
And that way, then we can just put a monthly schedule together and do those. And that way, everybody has some input into the dates.
Great. I think the other advantage of that too is when we get that information out, then it's going to allow the districts to know when those meetings are going to be, and then we can start to target, when they have what board meeting we need to hit, so that we're ready for that upcoming commission meeting. Because it does take some timing we want to get before the board of trustees prior to coming to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, from the boards, I think you've served on a board before. What we're seeing is some districts, they only meet once a month. Some districts that maybe a couple times a month. Generally, they're on a Tuesday, I think, is what we're kind of seeing. Monday, Tuesday. So
Tuesday, yep.
When we schedule our meetings, we'll try to be looking after that type of time frames for the month, when we send out that poll to the commission on maybe setting up some straw meetings at this point in time, but at least we'll have it on everybody's schedule. So it isn't, Dell and Shelby calling up saying, hey, can you guys meet tomorrow? We can have a little bit of maybe process in this, so.
Yeah, and then we would look at Wednesdays and Thursdays probably, or maybe Wednesday through Friday in some instances.
Yep. That's Mr. Chairman, that's our idea as well.
That makes sense. And then try to find maybe a central place to have as many as we can, or are you considering maybe all of them in Cheyenne?
Mr. Chairman, I think we would maybe evaluate that as we go, probably central, because a lot of these, I really want November 6 and 7 here, because the Mercer that we will be considering, for sure, is Laramie 1, and we want their participation. We may have one more to come before you at that meeting. We'll just have to wait and see how it progresses. But the others, are spread kind of all over the state. So we may look at a more central location because we might have districts coming from a number of directions, if we feel those need to be in person.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Any questions from the commission members?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, just to clarify, we're looking this November 6th and 7th.
Correct.
Okay, and what about October 16th and 17th? I've got a tentative schedule.
No, that's select.
That's
committee.
select. We've got October 16th is select.
Yeah,
Committee.
October 16th and 17th was originally select committee.
Or maybe this didn't change.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
bet that's
probably been changed.
Old.
Okay.
Yeah, that would, and so they've pared down the select committee from a 2-day meeting to a 1-day meeting. So that's the 16th for
Yes.
select. Wednesday.
And that's in Cheyenne?
Yes. I don't think we've got a room location here yet for the meeting, but that should be coming out fairly shortly.
I sent them the agenda, so if it's on there.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. Shelley says you should have the agenda, and that may be on that sheet as to where that's at.
Okay,
Capitol complex.
Yeah, it'll be in the Capitol complex somewhere, but I'm not sure which room they'll have it in.
Capital extension E005.
Okay.
okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting schedule as discussed.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Since you're ready to vote, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? So moved. The next item we have is tab 6 in your packet. It's the Park Elementary School thing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John
John
Rex,
Rex is doing this one.
John Rex is Project Management Supervisor for School Facilities. This request is from the Trona County School District, and it's a request to change the enhancement status on additional square footage at Park Elementary School and adopt it within the adequacy standards so that they can start using regular major maintenance to take care of that added square footage. Previously, the Trona County School District initiated and completed a 5,526 square foot addition to that school. And because it was not a school facility commission approved remedy, it was designated, its designated status was as an enhancement. At the time that addition was conceived, the district was at 106 capacity, 106% its adjusted capacity, and that particular building was substantially higher than that. They did have a considerable amount of more students in there than what their adjusted capacity was. As of October 23, the last scrub numbers that we've received from WDE, their enrollment at that school was 341. And our capacity for that school pre-addition was at 260 students. So you can tell that's a pretty significant overage. So they built the 4 classrooms, and that created an adjusted capacity for them of 341. And as of October 23, they had 351. So as of last year's scrub numbers, they're still at 102.93% capacity. However, we are showing a trend and a decrease in enrollment. So we're wanting to take a look at where that district ends up when we receive the scrub numbers for 2024 to determine where their capacity is. before we make a decision on whether or not to initiate a Mercer on that specific project. However, based on our allowable square footage calculator and the amount of students enrolled in that building, our square footage calculator drives out about 50,277 square feet as allowable. Previously, Park Elementary School had 28,654 square feet, and after the addition, they ended up with 34,180. So you can see their allowable square footage still exceeds their actual square footage, even including the addition. The action item today is to consider Natrona County School District number 1's request for School Facility Commission approval of the change in status from enhanced square footage to allowable square footage for the Park ES addition. And the recommendation from the State Construction Department is as follows. The State Construction Department recommends that the School Facility Commission approve Natrona County School District 1's request to acknowledge that the additional 5,526 square feet at Park Elementary School no longer exceeds the School Facility Commission's adequacy standards and thus should be changed from enhanced to allowable square footage in the district's capacity calculation, which would allow them to use regular major maintenance on the repairs. Any questions?
I'd entertain a recommended motion.
I'd move that the commission approve the state construction department recommendation as indicated.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. 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 Sensing you're ready to vote, all those in favor of approving the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
I
Any opposed, same sign? So moved. The
Thank you, Mr.
next
Chair.
item, whoops, I'm sorry.
The next action item we have today is for Albany County School District 1, who has requested unanticipated funding for Antelope Creek Elementary School modular project. During the 2024 budget session, $300,000 was appropriated for an ancillary construction project to purchase and install a modular classroom for the Antelope Creek Elementary School. This was a new school that didn't currently exist. We had another remote school out in that vicinity that closed. The known cost of the projects of that project at this time is $310,250. And the estimated but unquantified cost of the emergency generator, project audit, and owner's overhead for advertising are estimated to be an additional $24,000, which brings the total project estimate up to $334,250. And that exceeds the available budget by $34,250. The action item today is to consider Albany County School District 1's request for the School Facility Commission to authorize up to $34,250 from the School Facility Commission's unanticipated funds appropriation to be moved into the Antelope Creek School project budget.
I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move the commission approve the State Construction Department's recommended motion as written.
I need a second, please.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. 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 Sensing you're ready to vote, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. So moved.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add a couple comments in there now that we voted on that.
Okay.
I would like to recognize some of the parties that worked on this project. Certainly don't have the time or the information to recognize everybody that probably deserves it, but I would like to point out that the Chief Operations Officer, Randy Wilkeson, who happens to be online at this time, put out a tremendous effort to bring this project in and to get those kids in that school this fall. It was a very short timeline, and I just want to commend him on all the work that he's done, and including the self-performed work that he did on that particular building. It's a very nice modular building that we purchased from Carbon County Commissioners, and it appeared that it had never been used. The appliances still had
Probably still had
all of the
stickers on the
styrofoam
window.
from the packing in them on that school, and it's a wonderful building. Carbon County Commissioners did a great service to the community and to the kids by selling that modular to Albany County School District at a greatly reduced cost. And then I think also I'd like to recognize Albany County for some of their work. They donated a lot of road base and did a lot of work to create the road and the parking lot to that school. So just a few of the members that really worked hard and performed well in order to make sure that this happened.
Well, thank you, Randy, and everybody, and thank you, John, for doing that. So, does Randy want to say anything? He could take a bow. So, okay, is there any other business?
Mr.
Is
Chairman,
there any other?
yeah, any comment from the public?
Okay, that's what I was gonna call for. Any public comments? Any public comments? Any public comments? Since there being none, we will call this today's business meeting to an end. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I need a second.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we adjourn. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. So moved. Everybody have a great rest of the day.
Thank
you.
Commissioners.
So